quit now. Together, I know we can reduce smoking rates in Cleveland. Thank you.
Committee of Cleveland City Council come to order today, September 11th, 2024. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum? Would you please call the roll? Present.
Jones.
Present.
Gray. House Jones. Kelly.
Present.
Sly.
Present.
Starr.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you're
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and to all that are here, thank you. I want to start out today by recognizing that today is a very, very special day in the history of our country. September 11th, I know there are memorials today taking place across the country. Let us not forget what happened on this day, September 11th, 2001. And I myself remember very vividly as council president and was at a elementary school, Hannah Gibbons Elementary School in Cleveland's East Side, and then safety director, I believe it was Martin Flask, I believe it was in 2001, called me. I was trying to think about this morning on my way down, called me to say that after watching it on a monitor, that a plane, there was a plane, not missing, but there was a plane they were tracking, which they thought was on its way to Cleveland to possibly do damage in Cleveland. And at the playground, I stood at the playground, looked to the north, and I saw this large plane very low in the sky, and my stomach just turned. I thought that was the plane coming to do damage in downtown Cleveland. But what they did, that plane was forced to land at Burke Airport. And then we know a little bit later, the plane that went down in Pennsylvania. So again, let us not forget, remember those families in our prayers that lost loved ones, and to make sure that our country will never find itself in that situation again. Bad situation. But anyway, I want to thank my colleagues for being here today, and we're going to start off with ordinance number 806-24. And I want to thank the Safety Director and the Assistant Safety Director being here today. By Council Members Polensek and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept funds from the Ohio Department of Public Safety Emergency Management Agency to reimburse Cleveland for costs incurred for eclipse-related events occurring between April 6th through April 9th, 2024. First time it was submitted to City Council, first time reading was August 7th, 2024. It's been approved by Director of Public Safety, approved by the Director of Finance. There is no legal objection to the legislation as submitted. I see no estimated reimbursement in the legislation. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
With me is Assistant Director Nicole Carlton. To my right, she'll answer any questions relative to this ordinance.
Okay.
If passed by council, ordinance number 806-2024 would authorize the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept funds from the Ohio Emergency Management Agency to partially offset the cost incurred by eclipse-related events held in Cleveland between April 6th and April 9th, 2024. The anticipated reimbursement amount is approximately $89,000, which would represent approximately 75% of the eligible cost submitted to OEMA for the Eclipse 2024 events. Expense submitted for reimbursements are for personal cost for the members of the Division of Police, Fire, and the Emergency Medical Service that worked during the solar eclipse in April 2024. And again, any particular questions, myself or Assistant Director Nicole Carlton, who actually applied for this and put in and did all the background information, requested information from all the divisions and so forth, got all the paperwork together and submitted this reimbursement. So really appreciate all of her efforts and her team.
Thank you, Director. To Assistant Director Carlton. So you can tell us that we will be receiving $89,000.
To the chair, it's approximately $89,000, which represents, as the director said, approximately 75% reimbursement of the costs. As everybody's aware, that weekend, we were planning on having a huge influx of individuals within not only the city,
Yes.
but the county for the viewing of the solar eclipse. And Ohio EMA made funds available throughout the state of Ohio of $1 million to be reimbursed to all those who submitted for costs associated with the eclipse. And as everybody's aware, we had a very successful event.
What was our total cost?
Approximately $118,000.
And was that for mostly overtime?
To the chairman, the cost reflects overtime for the divisions within public safety.
Okay. So then the 89% represents approximately 75% reimbursement.
To chairman, 89,000, yes.
Yeah, and that's the process, and that's the percentage across the state, 75%?
To the chairman, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, let me see. To the assistant law director that is here, do we need to include the 89,000 in the ordinance?
I don't think you have to include it, Mr. Chairman, but you could put it in the approximate amount, 89,000.
Okay. Would somebody, member of the committee, make a motion to that effect? It's to put the 89,000 in the
May I ask a
ordinance.
question?
Yes.
Just to our law department, by making that amendment, are we limiting our, suppose, turns out we can get reimbursed for 90,000. By making the amendment, are we limiting ourselves in how much we could ultimately be reimbursed?
You say approximately, Mr. Chairman, to the council.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So would someone make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to add in there approximately 89,000.
Thank you. A motion's been made, it's been seconded. Discussion on a motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So please, Assistant Law Director, thank you very much. The additional overtime that we spent on that would be reflected in what, uniform overtime?
To the chairman, that's correct. It was uniform overtime, the
Okay.
bulk of which was for traffic control to maintain the flow of traffic throughout the city.
Thank you. On the note of overtime, who is monitoring that within the department? Uniform police overtime?
To the chair, obviously each division, obviously we have the Department of Public Safety, but each division is responsible to monitor their overtime expenditure.
Yes.
We have meetings with the finance department in each of the divisions relative to their expenditures.
Okay.
Not only in overtime, but other expenses as well.
Okay. Because, Director, excuse me, you're aware that right now we're at 133% over in police overtime, correct?
To the chair, I know that our overtime budget relative to the Division of Police is over, yes, sir.
Yes,
But that is being monitored by Chief Todd and her staff as well. Again, they have regular meetings with the finance department relative to the expenditures of overtime and other dollars.
Because that represents approximately $4 million over from what we had budgeted, and I'm concerned about that as we head toward the remainder of the year. So again, I want to make sure. I want to make sure that that is monitored almost like weekly. So, okay, thank you. Without any further questions, ordinance number 806-2024 is approved as read. My colleagues, please sign it up. Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman. Next ordinance, 807-2024. By Council Members Polensek and Griffin, by Department request an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Attorney General for Law Enforcement Diversion Program. It came to us first reading August 7th, 2024, approved by Director of Public Safety, approved by Director of Finance, approved by the Law Director. And let me see. Again, there is no, well, yeah, I see a dollar amount, $50,000 in the legislation. Dawn, identify yourself for the viewing audience here.
To the chair, my name is Dawn Hartsong. I am the Public Safety Grants Coordinator.
Okay. Who would like to tell us a little bit about this?
I'll start.
Okay.
Also joining us at the table, besides Dawn, is also Commissioner Wheeler from EMS.
Okay.
He and also Don will be able to answer questions that I can't
Okay.
articulate. So I'll start off, and again, if the body has questions, we'll entertain
Go ahead,
those
Director.
questions. If passed by council, ordinance number 2807, 2024 would authorize the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant in the amount of $50,000 from the Ohio Attorney General for the 2024 Attorney General Law Enforcement Diversion Program Grant. This legislation will provide funding for the operation of an EMS quick response team for overdoses for the Division of Emergency Medical Service, Department of Public Safety. This funding to enable the City of Cleveland to implement a quick response team, or QRT, model that will be enhanced to reflect the current needs of our community. Cleveland currently offers a successful law enforcement-led QRT program, but our community needs and has requested a QRT program that includes law enforcement as a vital partner, but not as a part of the team reaching out to the overdose survivors and loved ones. This grant would allow teams of EMS paramedics and EMTs to conduct the follow-up contacts and offer important resources. The grant will fund efforts to help heal the community from this opioid epidemic, such as dissemination of Narcan to the community members, drug disposal programs, community awareness, tracking of occurrences, continued research, maintaining community partnerships, and participating in state, regional networking groups. The grant is for $50,000, and there is no grant matching requirement. The funding will be used for overtime costs for EMS, paramedics, and EMTs to conduct follow-up contacts and offer important resources to community members. And again, I have Dawn as well as Commissioner Wheeler here to entertain any questions.
Dawn, you want to comment? Then we'll go to Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes, to the chair. This is a new funding opportunity for us. So this is the first time we have applied for this grant and received it. So it is, as the director mentioned, an opportunity for EMS personnel to reach out to someone who may have been suffered an overdose to provide them with community resources.
So this would be like, and I'll ask Commissioner Wheeler to weigh in here. So walk us through how this would work. How do you envision this working? Thank you. And identify yourself for the View and Public Commission.
Okay. Orlando Wheeler, Commissioner of EMS.
Thank you, sir.
To the chair, this program provides outreach to everyone that we encounter that has suffered an opiate-related overdose. We provide follow-up care, resource allocation, and also Project Dawn kits to prevent opiate-related deaths.
So somebody ODs, you respond, you revive that person with Narcan, and this is then a follow-up after that?
That's correct, Chair. To the chair, what we do is on a biweekly basis, we get the names of every overdose-related call that we responded to, and we have staff reach out to them or the family member to provide them resources either for recovery or to prevent other opiate-related incidents that may occur.
Okay. And so do we know, just for the sake of discussion, in 2023, how many related responses to whether it be fentanyl or any other overdose situation, we know what that number would be in 2023?
Through the chair, I don't have that exact number with me right now, but we have responded to roughly about 200 calls per month for opiate-related incidents.
That's incredible. So this year, 2024, still approximately 200 a month.
Correct.
And what's the prevalent drug that you're finding?
To the chair, that is that varies because it's
Okay.
hard to say exactly what it is. But once we get the call for opiate-related incidents, we refer it to police HIDE unit, and they follow up with that.
Okay. So are those numbers up or down from what they were in previous years?
Actually, to the chair, from last year, it's slightly down.
That's encouraging. Okay. So I would ask again to the director and to the assistant safety director and to all, these are, I think, numbers that need to be monitored and that we need to be kept aware of, because I'm greatly concerned when I look at police reports and the issue with fentanyl, the issue with EMS, and you know I had directed some correspondence to you about EMS allegedly going to one address repeatedly. In fact, I got calls again on that address this week for suspected overdoses. And I think there comes a point that we just got to do a deep dive on this and really, and I would ask you to try to really pin down the substance that you're coming across. Is it fentanyl? Is it heroin? Is it cocaine? Whatever the substance is, I would ask you to provide us whatever documentation that you can to better educate us all around the table. Because I'm greatly concerned about the whole, I mean, 200 a month, that's a lot.
Yeah, to the chair, if I can comment as well to your questions
Yeah.
relative to the type of drugs. That's it's a variety of drugs out there, from cocaine to
Yeah.
different opiates and so forth. We do have a strong relationship with the medical examiner's office. Actually, that provides some information for us. We are tracking it. I know the Division of Police tracks that information because we do have a heroin death investigation team
Right.
that follows up, as stated by Commissioner Wheeler. So we track those numbers, and as Commissioner Wheeler did state, the numbers are slightly down relative to the responses and also to the heroin-related deaths or overdose-related deaths.
Yes.
rather.
Okay. Thank you. Dawn, just the last question before I open up for questions of my colleagues. The 50,000, was that the maximum we could receive, or what? Was there a possibility of receiving more?
To the chair, 50,000 was how much we were told that we would receive, and it's all going to be used for overtime.
Okay, strictly overtime.
Chair,
Okay.
if I can
Yes.
interrupt as well, I did bring Chief Todd to the table relative to some of the questions that you have, that
Yeah.
we can offer some more clarification and information about the opiate-related deaths and the type of drugs that we're seeing that's prevalent in some of those
So
overdoses.
just on
she
that,
can provide
okay,
some
and
information.
again, and Chief, I would ask you again officially introduce yourself to the viewing audience, but who would specifically keep those numbers? Would it be EMS? Who would keep those numbers?
As far, I'm sorry, to
As
the
that
chair.
actual death, the cause of that?
We keep
Division
that,
of
we, the
Police.
Division of Police,
Okay.
keeps that particular information, sir.
Okay, thank you. Chief?
So good morning, I'm Chief Dorothy Todd, Division of Police. So as far as the opioid-related deaths for 2024, we currently are tracking 130. So we do a month-by-month comparison over, the past 10 years. In 2023, there was a total of 323. That was for all of the year of 2023. For 2022, there was 346. So just to give you a little bit of comparables, we track both the non-fatal and fatal overdose investigations.
Okay. And then if you can identify, Chief, someone who supplied the substance, we're going to take appropriate action against that individual.
So our investigators who go out for these, that's what their job is to investigate where these drugs have come from.
Okay.
And some of these have come back with successful convictions.
Good, good. Okay. I'm going to open up for questions at this point. Questions, Vice Chairman, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, thank you for the fine work that Commissioner Wheeler, that you and your team do with EMS and being able to save lives on the street as it relates to this epidemic. With this particular grant here, it was shared that you go back to follow up with those who unfortunately had overdoses. Do you have any statistical information that shows in the city of Cleveland what neighborhoods are most impacted by this epidemic?
Through the chair to the councilman, we do have heat maps as far as what zip codes have the most opiate-related incidents. And we don't just target those areas, we target everyone that we've encountered with opiate-related incidents. And I can say with, just from my time in the field, that some of these opiate-related incidents come from people outside of the city of Cleveland. So it's hard to really pinpoint and say that this is a horrible area or this is a horrible area, because we get so many people that don't reside in the city of Cleveland that we respond to and provide care to.
Right. So basically, it sounds like if you had to put a percentage on the people that you help, say you utilize the number 200 people, what would be the percentage of those people that would live in the city of Cleveland that would have this issue?
Through the chair to the councilman, my best guesstimate would probably be about a 70-30 split. 70 being city of Cleveland, 30 being outside.
Outside, 30% comes into the city of Cleveland and have these issues. And then 70% of this, that number would be actually physically here in the city of Cleveland. Can you make available, Mr. Chairman, to Commissioner Wheeler, those heat maps? Gives me an idea of what areas are the most impacted, unless you may know that offhand. Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Wheeler.
Through the chair to the councilman, just from two areas that I know that's impacted the most is the southeast side and the lower northwest side.
Just a moment. You said the lower
northwest side.
Okay. Just explain where that geographically would be.
Geographically, that would be somewhere around the 71st, I'd say from 41st and Detroit, Lorraine area up to about 79th in Detroit and Lorraine area.
I see. And then can you describe the geographical area on the east side?
Geographical area on the east side would be the southeast side from the Lee Harvard area, Slavic Village.
Okay. What part of the Lee Harvard? Is it right at the Lee Harvard area?
No, it would be the section that touches Slavic Village, Broadway area.
Okay, coming, maybe touching a little bit of Lee or
Yes.
Harvard? Okay. So we're at in Leroy, if you could give me, I'm really
Well,
tweaked to know.
it's hard to really pinpoint without,
Right.
because our heat map doesn't show like specific areas, it just shows the zip codes.
Okay.
So where those zip codes coincide, either the beginning or the end, however you want to relate to it, that would be the areas affected. We don't have those specific, without going into getting addresses, we don't have those specific areas.
That's fine. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to get exactly that geographical area as relates to the Lee Harvard area, so that we could make it a part of our safety plan and understand, where the issues are, so that we can drill down in the neighborhood to try to figure out, how we might. How our local development corporations and our various different other responders in the area can begin the process to take a more closer look at those zones.
Thank
So if you could make that available, Mr. Chairman, to
Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, I'd be appreciative.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. On your, just to follow up on your heat maps, I think part of the challenge that we would have within the body, when you look at the middle neighborhoods, or some people refer to as the edge neighborhoods, you have zip codes that overlap with the surrounding suburbs. I know that's the case with Collinwood and Glenville. So you've indicated to this table that the two or three critical areas of Detroit Shoreway, Slavic Village, and Lee Harvard. But unless you're drilling down more, and I would say this to you at the table, all of you, is there a reason why you're not using census tract data? Because that would be more definitive, and that would be the city. That would be, we could pin, when you go by a census tract, census tracts line up with the city borders. So I would ask that you take a good look at that, and again, can that data be refined based on census tracts rather than the zip codes?
To the chair, if I can respond, and you're right concerning the census tracts. Years ago, as you're aware, and we still do it with the police, we did do a lot of policing relative to census tract. So we'll talk to our IT folks relative to that and our analysts to see if we can go back to tracking those statistics relative to census tract.
That would be much more helpful for the council to have a better understanding. Because then we know we're not talking about East Cleveland, we're not talking about Euclid, we're not talking about Lakewood, where those census tracts overlap. And then again, the southeast side with Warrensville, et cetera. So, okay, any other members of the body have any questions? Okay, without further ado, ordinance number, we have it right here. What did I do with it? Yes, go ahead, Council Lady. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I just want to piggyback off our Councilman Joe Jones' question about the areas where the most impacted areas are in our community. Just my question would add on to, it might be not piggybacking, but in the sense of you have here that you're going to have resources programs that's going to assist the survivors from the overdose in these other resources that you're going to help them with. As here you have in like community awareness, continue with a tracking of occurrences, maintaining community partnership, participating in state regional network groups. Now to that, as all councils, we do participate with our residents in a lot of community meetings. We have a lot of vendors come to our community meetings and, and discuss what they do, with assistance in these areas. We have other organizations that reach out to let us know how they can assist. Could you name a few? Chair, to any one of the resources that are going to assist with the aftermath of recovering survivors from overdose?
To the chairman, to the councilwoman. Obviously, we've been on this epidemic front with the opioid overdoses for over a decade, as the chief said. And we've seen it change census tracts, population, and it affects everybody. The big thing, we look at the number of deaths, and we know that the deaths can be reversed if people have the Project Dawn kits in their homes, or if addicts aren't doing this alone, if they have a buddy system. So I think the most important resource across the board for anybody that has family members, friends, or anybody who is addicted to the opioids is to get a Project Dawn kit. Because if something does happen, they can reverse the effects of the opioids, and that person will start breathing again. So that is critical. And the Project Dawn kits, you can call EMS to get them, come down to the headquarters, and Metro has them, the hospitals all have them. Having Narcan available in the homes of anybody who is an addict, because we know they don't just overdose once. And it's not enabling them to continue to be addicted to the drugs. It is helping them survive another day to hopefully get into recovery. And that's where, it's really important for the Project Dawn kits.
Okay, Council Lady?
Okay, thank you, Chair. What is actually a Project Dawn kit?
To the chair, to the councilwoman, Project Dawn kit,
Is it dog or Dawn?
Dawn, like, yes.
Okay, D-A-W-N, okay.
Yeah. This provides Narcan, fentanyl test strips, resource guide for recovery and just basic information on how to stay alive.
Okay. Okay, and where can these kits be attained, Chair, to Commissioner?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, these can be obtained at EMS headquarters and any other area hospital.
Okay, and also, Chair, to the Commissioner, can these be picked up by the council to bring to their community meetings, to pass out or assist with family members that have dealt with overdose survivors?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I'm sure we could work something out within, to make this happen.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. I would ask you, when you're next before the table, and I don't know, I haven't looked into the, what other pieces you're going to have coming up before, but next time you're at the table, bring one of the kids so we can see them, so we can see it at the table, the members of the body. So I make that request, okay? Without any further questions, at this time, ordinance number 807-24 is approved as read. Please sign it up, my colleagues. Next piece is ordinance 820-2024 by council members Polensek and Griffin by department request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more contracts with Case Western Reserve University for data collection and analysis for the Cleveland Police Crisis Intervention Team Co-Responder Program for the Department of Public Safety for a period or periods not to exceed a total of 1 year. Its first reading was August 7th, 2024, approved by Director of Public Safety, approved by Director of Finance. There is no legal objection to the legislation. Estimated cost is $100,000. Director or whoever would care to comment.
Thank you, Chair, and to the body. At the table again with me is Dawn Hartsong, as well as Assistant Director Carlton and Chief Todd for the Division of Police. And if approved by Council, ordinance number 820-2024 would authorize the Director of Public Safety to enter into one or more contracts with Case Western Reserve for data collection and analysis for the Cleveland Police Crisis Intervention Team Co-Responder Program. The city's Police Crisis Intervention Team Co-Responder Program is a partnership between police, mental and behavioral health agencies, advocates, and community that seeks to achieve the common goals of safety, understanding, and safety to individuals in crisis, those with behavioral health issues, and their families. This contract will provide data collection and analysis for the Cleveland Police Crisis Intervention Team Co-Responder Program. Case Western Reserve University has a historical insight into the current programs and projects, effective collaboration and procedural management skills, and have collected and analyzed data from the last 4 years of the co-responder program. The contract with Case Western Reserve University will be period of 1 year in the amount not to exceed $100,000. This contract will include a quality review of the program and, where necessary, identify systemic and continuous actions that will lead to improvements that are interrelated to the role and function of the co-responder program or team. Again, I have my team here to answer any questions.
Okay. So who would care to comment in addition? Chief Todd?
Yes, again, good morning, Mr. Chair. So our co-responder program is currently comprised of 7 sworn members and 6 clinicians. So we have 6 teams that go out into the neighborhoods, and their responsibilities are to respond and assist with crisis calls, and also do follow-ups with those community members who have mental health issues or somebody that they have a past with that they go out and check on a regular basis.
Okay. So this program has been in effect for how long now?
So to the chair, it's been about at least 5 years that we've had this program. It started on a smaller basis. It has grown. We are working to have a total of 10 teams That would be 5 on the day shift hours and 5 in the late afternoon hours.
Okay. So the data that you've collected, what do you do with the data?
To the chair, part of that is, our response and deployment. Also, part of that is consent decree related.
Okay. So, is it a document? Because I've never seen it. So I'm just wondering, how do we get a copy of it?
To the chair, which document are you referring to?
Well, whatever case.
Oh, you're talking about the
Yeah,
data?
the data.
Data?
Yeah.
Okay. To the chair, we'll make sure that you get the data because
Yeah.
we put that information out. We, the Division of Police and
Okay.
Department of Public Safety, that goes on the dashboard. So we have that information available for the general public to take a look at our
Okay.
response or the Division of Police response
Okay.
relative to those in behavioral crises.
Okay, so how is the data collected? You collect it on a monthly basis? How is it collected?
So to the chair, it's through our CAD system that this data is
Okay.
collected as well as our Brazos system, which is the entry reports that are made related to these crisis calls. The information is also available on the city's open data portal.
Okay. So the case collects it daily. Is that what we're hearing?
To the chair, we collect the data, Division of
Okay.
Police, the
Okay.
officers on the street, as Chief Todd just articulated, our officers on the street who are dealing with individuals. They collect the data through our CAD system, our Brazos forms.
Yes.
That information is then compiled, and then CASE actually analyze the data that's collected by our members.
Okay, so that analytical review, is that on a monthly, a quarterly basis? How does case, the report that they have, so if we were to look at it, are we looking at a month report? Are we looking at a 6-month? What are we looking at?
To the chair, I'll have to double check.
Yeah.
I know they do it annually. It's
Okay.
an ongoing analysis of our activities, and when I say our, the
Yes.
Division of Police and our members' activities, but again, those in behavioral crisis, to make sure that we're doing, or the officers are doing what they're trained to do
Okay.
through our partnerships with the Adams Board and other community
Sure.
members. So the analysis is used by the Division of Police to make sure that our folks are responding
Yes.
accordingly. And as Chief Todd mentioned, we are under a consent decree, and that's part of the consent decree.
Right.
And we are now under an assessment for our crisis response to members in the community. And I have to say that our crisis response and our co-responders model is exceptional. The officers and the clinicians are doing a tremendous job in their city of Cleveland.
Yes.
And it's reflected in the responses from the DOJ as well as the monitoring team. And again, we're currently under assessment.
So before I open up for questions, so is there a final report for 2023?
To the chair, yes. There's annual reports related to the data that's collected. We also have a team that works part-time with the city that they collect that and work hand in hand with the case for this grant.
So I want to make sure that the clerk of council is hereby a recipient of that report. That will make a motion, I'll ask one of my colleagues to make a motion to that effect, that the clerk of council and members of council are to be recipients of whether it be the annual report or if there's a quarterly report or whatever the case may be. Is there a quarterly report, do we know?
We'll get that for you, sir.
Okay, we'll make that request as a part of this legislation. I would urge ask one of my colleagues to make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we receive any and all reports as relates to this particular ordinance to go. All members of Cleveland City Council should receive a copy of that report.
Along with the clerk.
And the Clerk of Council, Patricia Brett.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second?
I was seconded.
Okay, questions on the motion?
I was seconded, but within that motion that was just put on the floor, do we have a time frame? How often do we want to receive these reports? Is this on an annual basis or biannual?
Whenever the reason why the language is put in there, all in any reports, is that any time the report is completed and done, the administration will make sure that the council clerk, in addition to all Cleveland City Council members, will receive a copy of that.
Yeah, I would just inject, it wouldn't be a daily, but it would be, so we want to be, we don't want to be burdensome. So if it's quarterly, or however you do it, that's when we would receive the report.
And to the chair, all published reports, we will make sure that council receives a copy of it.
Okay, Assistant Law Director, did you get that?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? The motion's been made, appropriately made, and seconded. Any other questions on the motion? Without objection, Madam Clerk, call the roll on the motion. Yes.
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 Thank you. Okay, the motion, the amendment's been made and approved. Any other questions on ordinance 820-2024 by anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The questions I would have, Mr. Chairman, because, first, I believe in accepting any grants that's coming to the city of Cleveland to help us with problems and issues in the city of Cleveland. So, but the question I would have we received these grants periodically throughout time on the same situation in terms of making these reports?
Who can answer that? Dawn?
Yes, through the chair to the council member, we have received 2 previous grants that helped us to implement a pilot program for the co-responder program and then to expand that pilot program. We started with 2 teams and then expanded it to 5 teams. And now we're going to expand it to 10 teams.
I see. So, in doing that, have any other reports been generated?
Through the chair, yes, there have been quarterly reports that have gone to the Department of Justice related to the grants.
And Mr. Chairman, to Mrs. Hartzing, how many reports have been made so far?
Through the chair, each grant was 2 years, and there were quarterly reports, so 1 per quarter for 2 years.
Mr. Chairman, can request some information to get at least the last 2 quarterly reports that were made?
To the chair, we'll make sure that you receive that information.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Chairman, my next request would be, with these reports and the information that we are collecting and the data that we're collecting dealing with mental health issues in the city of Cleveland, what have we learned?
Who can
So-
comment?
Through the chair to the council member, what we have learned is this program is extremely effective. We have developed a program with our co-responders that, is been accredited for one of the top programs across the nation. So this is an effective way to deal with those in mental health crisis, and it's having that clinician partnership with our officers is giving a different type of response to these calls. And, our officers, they have the specialized CIT training, but this really goes above and beyond and is a great value to the community.
I have to piggyback to the chair, to Councilman Jones. As Chief Todd just stated, we've learned quite a bit with this program. Part of it is that having a clinician with our officers is really important, to have that person that has the actual extensive training in dealing with folks that are in mental crises. That helps, coupled with having our officers who have specialized training. All the officers in our co-responders program, they have specialized training, which is 40 hours in comparison to the, I believe it's 8 hours for our patrol officers. So again, they're not only do they have the specialized training, Councilman, but based on national best practices, the individuals that are involved in the program, the sworn officers, volunteer for the program. They have a special interest in it to make sure that the program is successful, and the individuals that they're helping get the best possible treatment possible. And again, through our partnership with the Adams Board to deliver the training to our officers, we have learned that this program with the clinician and the specialized CIT officers is very successful. And as Chief Todd stated, that we're a national model relative to the I would say the consent decree circles.
And you know, one of the things I will say is that whenever, you know, if we are a absolute model or international model, that's something that the City of Cleveland's Police Department should be bragging about. And so it would be good, Mr. Chairman, to the Safety Director, to the Chief, you know, any of those highlights that talks about the positive approach that we are doing in the City of Cleveland, because every time you look, you turn around, there's always this negative energy. There's always this negative this or that or the other. So I think that at the end of the day, if you have a program that's fundamentally working, it has been put on a national stage as a program that should be held up for others to emulate. We need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to get that information out there. Now, on this issue of that, can you give an example of how your responders, a call comes in, can you start from that process, how it works, and is it, so whenever, every time there's an issue, how do you determine that it's a health issue at the other end of that phone call?
So as the call comes into dispatch, the nature of the call is then evaluated. So is this somebody who is a threat to anyone who's responding? So being that there is a clinician partner, if there is a threat of harming somebody, they are not the first responders. We have a duty as law enforcement to protect the clinicians as well. So we would first send a specialized CIT patrol officer. They would go out and they would, make that initial evaluation. And if they would find cause that they still need additional support, once they have that individual, in a safe environment, that specialized co-responder team would come out to assist. One of the things the specialized co-responder teams do is they do follow-up checks on individuals. So they're not just responding to calls for service. They go out and they check on the individuals, make sure that they're getting to their doctors, see if there's something they can assist with, making sure that their medications are balanced. So it's the follow-up care that comes with it. It's not just responding to calls for service.
And also, if I can chime in,
Yes,
on a personal level as well, and I may have mentioned that at this table in the past relative to our co-responders responding to individuals in crises. I have a relative that suffers from mental illness, and this was approximately a year and a half ago. The relative actually lives with my mother. My mother's 81 years old, and she has mental issues, and my mother called me in a complete panic because of my cousin was in crises at that particular time. I called, as Chief Todd just mentioned. The co-responders responded to my mother's home, and I was the chief of police at the time, so we have the ability to monitor through our cameras. I was able to watch the co-responders, the specialized CIT officer, along with the clinician, actually interact with my cousin for an extended period, probably over 2 hours, to get her calm, to convince her to come out the house, to convince her to go to the hospital. And I was very impressed with the patience, the level of respect and care that they offered my cousin. And again, that's personal to me, and they do that for all the individuals they come across. And my cousin was taken to the hospital without any force because of the training and the compassion that these individuals have or had for my cousin, or not just my cousin, just anyone that they encounter.
And I think that that's important. I've seen so many videos, Mr. Chairman, online where where police are interacting with people who have mental health issues, and unfortunately they've always ended up in a tragic situation across this nation. So you identify that there may be a mental health issue here, and I know that, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, the world has changed so rapidly since COVID. I don't think I've never seen anything quite like it as relates to the emotionally unstable people that we run in as council members on a daily basis. And when you're in those crisis moments, in those situations where, say, there's a homicide, how do you deal with those type of situations, and you know that the person is totally unstable? Would it be one of these type of situations where you would have your officers involved with trying to deal with an issue in and around a potential homicide?
So through the chair to the council member, we could, but there are other services available for crime victims and crime victims' families, and we do make referrals in those situations. So those would be a little bit different on how we would handle this. You know, we would make sure to refer the proper services for someone in those situations.
And do we have stats and statistics that we could ask for that tells us just how the need here, how bad it is here? How many runs are we doing with dealing with people who are unstable mentally?
So through the chair to the council member, we do track those stats. That is also on our open data portal. The calls for service we respond to for mental health crisis. And, you know, it is overwhelming. There is quite a few. You know, it's one of the regular calls that our officers do respond to. So we do track that information.
So it's a major issue in the city of Cleveland.
I think it's not just in the city of Cleveland. You know, that's it's a nationwide issue.
Right.
You know, the officers are the first responders for those type of calls.
So how many calls do you know on average? You don't have to be exact. That you have, say, maybe on a monthly or quarterly or
I don't want to give the wrong information, but I can get that for you.
I appreciate that. And Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Just two last questions that I have. The $100,000, Dawn, where's that coming from?
To the chair, that is ARPA funding.
ARPA, okay.
And it's also, it's a fund number 10 SF 400 is where it's coming from.
Okay. The clinicians, how many do we have?
So to the chair, we currently have 6 clinicians. We have 3 that we're currently interviewing to bring us up to 9, but we're working to get 10 clinicians.
So how many of the 5 police districts, how many clinicians are assigned to each district?
So through the chair, or to the chair, we have 1 co-responder team assigned to each district. Downtown has a, you know, with the homeless population,
Yes.
and which also runs hand in hand with mental health. There's a dedicated co-responder team for the downtown area as well. So
Okay.
the 3rd district has 2. Each other district has 1, but we're working for 2 per district.
Okay. And the final question is and that's for each platoon?
So to the chair, these are citywide, so they're not on each platoon. We have 2 teams that work day shift, and we have the other teams work nights, but they do respond cross-city.
Okay.
So if the need is in a different district, they will respond to another district for these calls.
So you can assure us that the entire 5 police districts are covered around the clock?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the committee? Without any further ado, ordinance number 820-2024 is approved as read. Please sign it up. Thank you, my colleagues. Last piece we have before us is ordinance number 835-2024 by council members Polensek and Griffin by Department Request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the executive director of the Community Police Commission to enter into one or more contracts with the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland for grant management services for a period of 1 year with one option to renew for an additional year, exercisable by the executive director of the Community Police Commission. First time it came to us was August 7th, 2024, approved by Community Police Commission, approved by Director of Finance, and approved by the Director of Law. Estimated cost of this proposal is $110,000. And who would like to lead off on this one?
I'd be happy to start. My name is Pete
Yeah.
Van Leer. I'm a member of the CPC of the Police Commission.
Would everyone else introduce themselves at the table?
My name is Sharina Zayed. I'm the co-chair of the Cleveland Community Police Commission.
Okay,
I'm Celeste Terry, Grant Manager for the United Black Fund.
okay,
I'm Twyla Turner. I'm the Director of Program Resources for the United Black Fund.
okay, thank you.
So I'll just, a brief...
Pete, pull that in front of you and talk into it.
Okay, to the chair. A brief introduction. I've been helping manage this process so far, and we're very excited to have this opportunity. So thank you all for giving us the chance to talk to you and for considering this legislation. As you may know, I've sent out some information. We have money set aside from Section 115.5 for the Police Commission to make grants to the community related to programs for restorative justice, violence prevention, and community mediation.
Right.
And last year, the CPC, with our commissioners and staff, worked on this and did that program on our own. And we are now, it's a pretty heavy lift, and it's taken our time away from the police oversight that, the city voters approved. And so we want to find a different way to increase our capacity. So we put out an RFP. United Black Fund was the entity we chose, and we are very excited to have them, with their long involvement with the community, doing grant making work, as a potential partner in this work. So I can certainly answer questions, but I'd love to have the folks from UBS address you.
Well, let me direct questions first to you and to the co-chair. The $110,000, where's that coming from?
That comes, we're looking to get that from the grant money, the money that's been set aside for us to give grants to the community.
So that entire dollar amount was how much?
It's just over $1 million.
So you're going to take it out of the million?
Yes.
Okay. And how many groups you going to award funding to?
Well, last year we gave out 26 grants. We had 96 applicants, and we awarded 26 grants.
26 grants last year.
I have a list here of those grantees, if you'd like to.
Yes, last year. So, who monitored them?
We have been working on getting that process, getting that going.
Yes.
But that is our role, and that's also something that we would be working with the United Black Fund on if this is approved.
So, are they operational, or have they received their money?
So far, I believe 10 have received their money. It's quite a process with the city to contract for the money, and a lot of these are very small organizations, and
Yes.
it's been a challenge for them to move forward. But the ones that I have on the list are the Angela Miller Foundation.
No, wait a minute. So they have received their funding?
They have
No, wait a
received,
minute.
they've finished their
Go down your-
contracts.
Go down your list, okay?
Angela Miller, Cleveland Clergy Coalition,
No, wait a minute. Keep going.
going alphabetically. So.
Okay.
Friend of Felon Corp,
Wait a minute. Friends?
Friend of Felon Corp.
Okay, gotcha.
On the back page, Green Movement Glenville,
Green Moon Glenville, okay.
Kingdom Alliance,
Kingdom Alliance,
Love Train Ministries,
yes.
Prolific Achievers Academy,
Prolific, okay, keep going.
Prolific Achievers Academy.
That's on the back side.
Yeah, so on the back, it's Green Movement Glenville, Kingdom Alliance, Love Train Ministries, Prolific Achievers Academy, Rivers in the Desert,
Wait a minute.
Toward the bottom.
Rivers in the desert, okay.
Soul Serenity,
Soul Serenity.
and Spread the Love Foundation.
They have received their funding.
That's my understanding.
Now, wait a minute, I want to make sure I have a note on that. Received, and how would you know they received it?
Some have received partial payment. Clarification, I think for some it's a reimbursement process, others they get it in chunks, I think quarterly.
Who makes that determination? Do they have to submit invoices?
Determination for?
What group submits invoice and what group doesn't?
It's determined based on whether they submitted a hardship application or not. So
Okay.
some organizations, because of their capacity and their size, they're not able to conduct the reimbursement. So they ask for a hardship so they can receive those funds up front.
Okay. So who's been, the groups that have received the funding to date, who monitors their activities?
That's the role of the commission. That's
Okay.
our role.
So, do you know what they're doing? You know what each one of the groups are doing?
I am not the one who's involved with that. Do you, I mean,
Yes, so right offhand, I've had meetings with, I've had conversations with Spread the Love on their progress. I've had conversations with Rivers in the Desert to monitor their progress. I've had conversations with Love Train Ministries to see where they are in their efforts. I've also had detailed conversations with Kingdom Alliance and was invited to the events that they conducted as a result of receiving funding. And then there are other commissioners that are keeping track of the other organizations.
Okay. So you're aware that any group that receives $50,000 or more, that group has to come back to city council?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So the groups that you have earmarked here for 50,000, yeah, we have a copy for council. For 50,000, are those coming back to us?
Well, it's over 50,000,
50.
yeah.
Okay. So if you're rated 50, you're not coming back to us?
That's what's in the city charter, right?
Yes, I'm aware of that. Okay. Now, I got to ask this question. A group that gets $25,000 for citywide, explain that to me. How are they going to do something citywide with $25,000?
Well, a lot of times, their projects don't just require that 25,000. The 25,000 assists in a project that they're already receiving funding for. So maybe, you know, they ask another organization for $100,000,
Okay.
and the gap is that $25,000.
So the groups that you've indicated here, they could be recipients of other foundation
Possibly, yes.
Correct.
Okay. And so when they are working in a specific neighborhood, as when you see the geographical area, what engagement, if any, is there with the ward council people representing those areas? Do we know if there is engagement?
I would think it would depend on the program and what their role is and
And their
what their connections
relationship.
are, their relationships.
Okay.
We don't, yeah.
But would you encourage them to be
We
course,
do.
yeah.
We do
contacted?
encourage them.
Because I think one of the concerns that we've been having on the northeast side of the city is that these groups that have been funded, very few, if any of them, are even working on the northeast side of the city. So, and I want to say this in general, we have funded, this body has funded in excess of $10 million in violence prevention programs. We created a whole department here up on the third floor. We have funded issues, we have funded personnel and outreach within the community relations department. And what I'm trying to get an understanding as to who's doing what and are they effective? Because there's a recent controversy that has just come to light where a group have received funding, and I'm not going to go into the group, have received funding, and then have been alleged to be doing some things that were improper on the southeast side of the city. Okay, and so what I want to be assured by somebody, and I will get into the discussion with the United Black Fund. See, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the juvenile violence in the city, especially gun-related violence in the city involving juveniles, and I don't see it diminishing at all. In fact, it's become, in my time here, probably as bad as I've ever seen it. So we're funding all these groups, and I keep saying to myself, maybe it's just too early to see results. I'm trying to rationalize that in my head. But at some point, the collective body is going to start asking some real pointed and direct questions as to what you are doing. What are they doing out here to stem the tide of violence, and to also to create better lines of communication with our younger population, and because again, and I want to repeat this again for the viewing public, this council provided not only the administration everything they asked for during the budgetary process for the various departments and divisions, but we went above and beyond the call of duty and in supporting various departments, divisions, etc. We had a lot of internal discussions about the $10 million that we awarded, the $10 million plus that we have awarded to outside agencies for, again, violence reduction programs. And we want to be assured that the money that we're providing is well spent and is having an impact. And that's the thing I keep asking myself. Is it being focused in the right places? Is it being focused in the right neighborhoods? You know, why has North Glenville been like virtually ignored? So those are the ongoing questions that we're going to continue to ask. So as co-chair, would you want to, do you have any thoughts or comments?
Yes, I do. So I know from the organizations that I spoke of that I listed today, I know for a fact that Councilman Starr, he's on the ground. He knows what's going on in the community. And I know he has interactions with Ghetto Therapy, who we funded, interactions with Golden Ciphers, interactions with Men and Women of Central, know the person that runs Rivers in the Desert. And I also, with the Glenville community, Love Train Ministries has reached out to Anthony Hairston many times, and I'm happy, and I encouraged her to reach out to him to get him involved in work she's doing, and I'm happy to report that they connected within the last 2 to 3 weeks because she recently received her funding so they can come together and figure out the work they can do together in that community.
Well, there's 3 councilmen in Glenville. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that she's reached out.
I believe that she also has reached out to Conwell as well.
Okay, okay.
And so, you know, I think that a lot of these organizations are young. A lot of these organizations face the same challenges we do of figuring out what will work. Okay. And that's why we want to use the United Black Fund, because Richard knows I called him last year and said, how can we come before council in a timely manner so that we can get as much money out to as many people as possible? We don't want to give out $50,000 grants. We want to give out $250,000 grants so we can have the greatest impact. We want to work with you guys to make those selections. But with the amount of work we have to do for police oversight, policies, and things like that, we just didn't have the capacity. Being able to use the United Black Fund will allow us to take a breath and be able to sit back and work with you guys to figure out which organizations in the city deserve the most funding so we can have the greatest impact.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Councilman Jones, yes.
On the issue of the greater impact, and you know, I'm certainly, Mr. Chairman, not, I really appreciate the fact, because I know that, you know, it's my understanding that you guys took a lot of time going through this and going through all the applications and all the people, and that's a one heck of a job to be able to do that. And I think that you came to this table and talked about all that process, what you went through, and how you derived that being able to do this. Now, this amount, this list that we have in front of us, can you provide for us a little bit more detailed information of who we can contact on this list that provide citywide services And we, because most of these folks here that have the citywide services, we don't know anything about them. They haven't contacted our office. So if you could make that available, we can begin the proposition of reaching out and seeing how some of those services can work in our community, our neighborhood. We have a number of hot spots and zones right now that the police department is dealing with. You know, a lot of times, you know, I get on the phone and talk to the police, but we have a lot of young people who are gathering at various different locations at night in the neighborhood, and we really need to get some of these groups that say they're doing whatever it is that they're saying they're doing in terms of violence prevention, having them aware of where our hot spots are, and then have them actually working with our local 4th District Police Department and Ralph Valentino, who's the commander. I would also encourage you to reach out to your groups and have them go to these district monthly meetings so they can make aware these programs at those monthly meetings. And then, Mr. Chairman, as fast as you can make available to us the contact information of who's who, that would be great.
And just to follow up at Councilman Jones's request, so we would ask for a contact person, their phone number, email, and then where they're located at, their physical, if they have a physical address of where they're located at. Because you provided the geographical areas that they're working, but as Councilman Jones indicated, I myself, I've only been contacted by 2 groups that are working, and both of those are agencies that were funded by the Community Relations Department that have reached out to me. Other than that, I have not been, no one has reached out to me because I don't think they're working, as I indicated before, any of these groups are working on the northeast side to my knowledge. Because if they were, I would somehow come into contact with. Councilman Jones makes an excellent suggestion of being at the Citizens Police Community Relations meetings once a month, where you have community leaders and organizations in attendance so they can start to interact and maybe get to know folks on a first-name basis, because it's all about creating, in my opinion, creating partnerships and linkages in these neighborhoods. And we have to do that every chance we can. So this is from 2023, this list that is before us. Yes, you have a question, Councilwoman? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. To the, you're the
Co-chair.
Co-chair, to the co-chair. I'm just going to piggyback off of my colleagues. These citywide programs, do they report to you with data saying that they did report to the council in their communities to let them know where they're at and what they're doing? I'm only going to say this is because Joe Jones and I share Together We Rise. And they do attend my meetings. They do have their own meetings in the community. And they do call and email me with their data and their locations where they have been. So I'm just saying that since this is, they brought up a good point. Since these other programs are citywide, do they give you data letting you know that they have reached out to all councils and to let you know where they've been and what they've been doing if they have not reached out to us? Because no other citywide organization has sent me an email or reached out to me to let me know that. So that's why I'm only asking you, do you get that response? If we don't, so you be aware that they have done something in our wards for you to show us that data since they have not.
We do require written reports from them, and I don't think we've gotten one yet, but we certainly can share those and share the information, and we're happy to share the information about these organizations as much as we can get. And we haven't required them to reach out to council, but we can certainly consider how we encourage them to do that moving forward.
Okay, and I understand that. So because by you saying that, how will we know what are they actually doing in the ward? Because I know, like I said, Together We Rise are very effective and engaging in Ward 4, and we work hand in hand. And I just saying what is being brought up, and also with Councilman Starr, as you praise Councilman Starr above all the organization that he is, that contacts him and work with him very well. These other citywide programs should have some type of initiative to know what they got the money, that money that was granted to them. The citizens of our community need to know who they can reach out to get that assistance with all the bad activities that have been going on in the community. So just saying that it's apparent to them to be announced at our community meeting, if nothing else, that the citizens should know that they can call this organization, if not calling the council, because we're the safety committee, the safety committee, but we're not the safety of the police force.
Right.
So just knowing how detrimental of what Councilman Belinsky said earlier, that what is going on now is really out of control, and we trying to figure it out, but these organizations getting funded, we need to know how they stepping up to assist the citizens, to assist the council, so we can know who we can call on, because it's a dangerous situation even for them if they are not in that, if they don't have that experience to step up as like a police officer would to assist with the bad activity going on in the community. This will also help me. What is their ability that they're actually doing, and how they're going to assist what they're doing in their program if they can't go out and protect, if they're not going to go after the bad activities, because this is not what the organization does, and the people that work in that organization is not secure or qualified or had expertise to do what the police officers are supposed to do as to serve the public. And grant me, we don't want nobody to get killed or hurt dealing with these bad activities. But that is a strong point for us to know now. What do they actually supposed to do to assist to serve the resident in our wards?
Thank you.
And that's something that I would really like to know, because dealing with Together We Rise, they, the constituents in my ward, and they come to my meetings, and they have separate meetings. Those constituents understand what Together We Rise does. They don't expect them to protect them from the bad activity, but they know the resources that they provide for them to reach out to them. And I agree with my colleagues, I am clueless of what they will provide for the constituents, where I could even call on them to say if something happening, I can say, could you go to this area, and or could you contact this resident because they need this type of resources. I can't do that with any of these citywide programs, but I can do that, with Together We Rise. So
Thank
just
you.
making a point.
Yes.
That's it. Make a
Well,
point statement.
I think you made, thank you, Council Lady. You only reinforced, if you're a nonprofit, and I'm assuming, please correct me if I'm wrong, are all these groups nonprofit?
Most.
Yeah, yes, they are.
So-
So if they're, not all of them have that status. Some of them work through a fiscal agent. Because
Okay.
as we said before, this is like, we had a focus, and we had
Yes.
intentional focus on grassroots groups. So
Right.
some of them are very small, they don't have a lot of capacity, so they work through a fiscal agent, and we take the approach that we need all hands on deck because we share your concerns about
Yes.
the
So-
violence and the need to do this
So
work.
if you are a nonprofit group or an agency working in Councilman Starr's ward, Councilman Jones, Councilman Kelly, Councilman Slight, Councilman Gray, my own ward, et cetera, I would like to believe that they would make contact with us to let us know who they are. And by not engaging us, that to me is bothersome. If someone's working in my ward and we're funding them with public dollars, I'd like to know what they're doing. And so, so you've got, this is for 2023 before us. Now, I want to I want to welcome our ladies from United Black Fund here and have them introduce themselves on the public.
Sure.
Sure.
Again, to the chair, my
Sure.
name is Celeste Terry. I'm
Yes.
the grant manager for the United Black Fund. And I would like to just piggyback on what the discussion has been regarding violence prevention. One of the organizations that you're currently funding is called Renounce Denounce.
Wait a minute, that
And
is on the sheet.
Which one is it
yes,
again?
they are on the sheet. Renounce Denounce is an organization that
Renounce.
came to us several years ago. In fact, we were their first grant, and I've worked with them tremendously over the years. And so they are
Okay.
one of the organizations that literally goes out into the street and gets kids off the street and works to get
Okay.
kids out of gangs and things like that. And you literally can call them, and they will go wherever you need to go. And so as I'm hearing the discussion, one of the aspects that we do with our grantees is training. We provide an ample amount of training. And what I'm hearing and what I think we can be very helpful with is providing a session of training where we talk to the grantees to talk to them about how important it is to have contact with City Council. Because I do encourage our grantees to know who their council people are
Yes.
and to go to their meetings and to have contact so we know
Yes.
who they are. And so I see that as an opportunity for us to provide that as one of the trainings that we would offer if we are approved for this contract, because it is very important. And you should know that the work that they are doing. And there are very good groups that are doing very good work that you should know about. But yes, Renounce Denounce is one of those who came to us very early on. We've nurtured them. I've nurtured them and worked with them and gotten them to the point now where they're at a point where they can now get $25,000, $50,000 grants.
Yes.
And they also were a grantee for a second round of grants that we had called Community Thrive, because we looked at two issues that are really impacting our communities, which is gun violence and mental health issues. And so we selected Renounce Denounce out of a group of 20 applicants as the organization that we thought was the most effective for
Okay.
gun violence. And so, we are very concerned about that issue just as well.
Okay, because here I think is a case in point. This is the first time I've heard the name of the group, and yet they're working citywide. So I think ties into what Councilman Jones and Councilman Gray and other people have said, that we need to know what they're doing.
Right.
I think the worst case scenario that we could have here is that come next year, end of next year, after spending millions of dollars on prevention programs, and we don't see any improvement in the level of violence in the city.
Yeah.
That would to be, I think at that point, then we in council, then the taxpayers have a lot of questions to be asking of these groups. What have you done? What are you doing? How are you engaging the community? How are you engaging council members and neighborhood groups? Which I think is very critical. And so at this point, again, tell us a little bit more. Introduce yourself as well.
So I'm Twyla Turner, Director of Program Resources at the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland. And one of the things that has been discussed is around the capacities to be able to reach out to the grantees and ensure that they're providing information about the outcomes, as well as reports on the impact that their programs are having within the city. One of the things that the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland does very well is our grant-making process. And a part of that is the requirement of reports in order to actually get your funds. So we train, we support, and we also follow up with them to ensure that they are reporting and tracking information so that we can demonstrate how effective their programming is. And when we find that the program is not as effective as they described in the proposal, we support them in ways to ensure that their outcomes are either improving or we change the way that the proposal is then reported out. So, the success of us having been in this industry for over 43 years speaks for itself in our ability to be able to work with grassroots organizations to have them tracking and demonstrating their success.
Okay.
And I've been in this position for 35 of the 43 years that we've existed.
Wonderful.
So I work very closely with a lot of the organizations and work very well at helping them understand the important things that they have to do as small organizations in terms of reporting and making sure that they are able to do what they need to do so that they can get additional grant funding.
So, ladies, you're very much aware of who the CPC has recommended this time for 2024, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so you've indicated you're going to monitor those groups very closely. Do they have to give you, how do they give you quarterly reports? How are they going to, what's the reporting process to you?
Sure. We're basically going to be replicating our own process for
Okay.
grant management, and so our grantees have to supply us with quarterly reports.
Okay. So we're going to ask the same question, same that we've asked for the folks for 2023. We want to know the name of the person in charge of each of the groups.
If I
Go
may.
ahead. Yeah.
Chair, we have not yet selected grantees for 2024.
Oh, I
That's-
thought you had.
No.
Okay.
We have 2023. The process will be with UBF to select.
Okay. So once that is completed, we'd like to, again, the same contact information, phone numbers, email, where they're located at, and then again, which is critical, again, the geographical area they're going to be working. And hopefully we're going to see some groups working, not only when we see citywide, but in areas that have been, in my opinion, ignored, which is the North Glenville neighborhood, in my opinion. So, okay. Before I call upon my colleagues, is there anything else CPC wants to add to this discussion at this point? Okay. United Black Fund, any other additional comments you want to make? Floor is open. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr.
And again,
Chairman.
please be mindful of your time frames, Gabe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to be too lengthy here. First, I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, to the commission, I think that this is the proposition of understanding how busy you are and what you will be doing, and how this here being able to refer to an agency and organization that has a long, lengthy history of being in the community, of helping to be a funding source is significantly important, and certainly an institution that has the accountability system that's in place to monitor the efficiency and effectiveness of these grants going to the various grantees. So I just wanted to give you kudos on the wisdom of making the decision to move in that direction. And certainly this council member supports that. United Black Fund has been around, forever, since before I was born, probably. And I'm appreciative of the work that they have done and performed in the city in Cleveland in the past. When I've had relations when I was a kid to Mr. Tanton, who used to run the program a long time ago, back in the 80s. So I just got a fond history of the good work that they do for our people and our community. So thank you. Now, focusing over to the United Black Fund, just so that I can have clarification. What you stated earlier in your testimony is that you're going to monitor the existing group that has already received this $1 million, and you're going to be responsible for the totality of the fund moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes, we will be replicating our grant management process in conjunction with the commission. We will be working with them to see.
You might want to pull
I'm
the
sorry.
mic close.
We will be working with them to see how they do things and then tweak the process to do things accordingly to how the police commission will want to do it. We do site visits, we visit, we have conversations, we do everything we need to do to make sure that grantees are compliant.
I see. And so at this point, and then just further understand it with clarification, any grants moving forward in the future would all be referred to go to the United Black Fund? Right. Is that correct? How does that work? How does the exchange work here?
Who can answer that question?
Well, our vision and the contract that we are proposing is that we would work with, in conjunction with United Black Fund. They would put the information out, make a call for proposals. The proposals would come in through UBF.
Okay.
And then we would engage in a process as the commission, as commissioners working on this to help, they would help us in the process of narrowing down who doesn't meet the criteria, for example, for the grant process, and weed them out as we did last year on our own, and then invite full proposals and consider those proposals. They would help us manage that. Just like, here are the ones you should be looking at. Here are some questions, and we would retain authority of approval over who gets the grants, but they would facilitate and manage a lot of that work, not only on the front end to award the grants, but then also helping grantees. One of the issues that we've seen is that many of these small organizations have a hard time navigating the contract with the city. So they would help with that. And then, as they've said, they have an accountability process. They do site visits. They have reports, quarterly reports. And so they would be sharing that with us, and we would be, informing their process as well.
Okay. So if I'm, ABC crime prevention, ABC 1, 2, 3, and I want to get a grant through the commission, who do I go to see?
Who can answer?
It'll be a shared. It'll be shared, but I mean, we'll be putting the word out. The grants will come in, and they'll start to look at the grants that are coming in together. We'll look at them together and go through that process.
They
But a lot of
retain
the
authority, but you're doing the process.
they're
Okay.
managing that. They're like taking in paper, whatever that kind of
Okay.
that thing.
So did you want to add?
I was going to say we would leverage our grant making portal that we have, so it'll live on our website. So we'll make sure that the commission has access to it as well as us having access to it. But it's a streamlined process so that if you apply, even if you applied on the commission, as long as it goes to our portal, it's still going to the same place.
Okay, so they'll apply. They have the option to apply to the commission in addition to the United Black
Well,
Fund?
I think what we
or-
would do is like the portal would be UBF's portal. It would be linked through our website. It would be publicized through both, but it would go through their portal. Our portal. That would be
Okay.
the idea.
So just making sure that is, how the process works, for the most part, because it seems like I see you guys trying to put it together here. Knowing what the process is important, right? And then, one. And then two, you already have the accountability, I guess the financial side. You're going to be looking at making sure that the structure is right, and then if they're very productive. Now, our concern here at the table, and you maybe heard a little bit coming from the chairman, is that we do have a lot of these organizations out here. The council has spent, a lot of money, some of which I'm in agreement with, and some I'm not in agreement with, to institutions and organizations throughout the city of Cleveland with funds and funding. And there's no way that we can really fundamentally say if they're doing anything or not. So that's the reason why we're asking who's accountable, who's going to be doing what. And we're talking about funds and resources set aside that's separate from what we're talking about here at the table. So it's good to have the United Black Fund that's going to be responsible for at least what it seems to be the administrative approach to this. As a council person, since you're already in the field and you know some of these institutions, I don't know, what would you consider the top institutions that are dealing with violence prevention, given the fact that we're being over-inundated in our neighborhoods with issues?
Right. Well, I spoke earlier about Renounce. I spoke earlier about Renounce, Denounce, and I particularly like them because they really go into the community, get people, the kids, out of the gangs and put them into their program to change their thinking. They also work with young ladies who are equally as violent, if not more violent. And so, to me, they are one of the top organizations that really, really does that work and is very effective at what they do.
Well, I checked them off here on the thing, so
Yes.
if you could make that available, their information, and if you have some other institutions that you would say top 3 or top 4, I would love to
Absolutely.
get that information.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman, I have no unreadiness
Thank you.
as relates to the United Black Fund, working with the commission to help to manage the
Thank you.
proposition of these awardees.
Thank you, Councilman. Before I call upon Councilman Slade, of course, we want your information as well. Your
Absolutely.
contact information, your
Absolutely.
address, emails, phone numbers, et cetera. Councilman Slade.
I'm looking at them and not Danny. So, good morning still. And I'll just begin by saying I'm appreciative. So I've shared this, I think, similar concerns that we've heard around the table, that if we are to spread grant making too thin, it it impacts our ability to meet the challenge that we are trying to meet. So to that end, I'm appreciative and understanding of the proposal here, and thankful for the United Black Fund. I shouldn't say to enter into this work. We received from Mr. Van Leer a list of your past grant making, and I think this really builds upon work that you're already engaged in directly through violence prevention, but also there's grant making that you do that is either indirectly related or worthwhile in its own right, related to public health, community building, things like that. And I say all of that as someone who bluntly, did not vote for issue 24. Clearly, I was in the minority of that decision, and as I see it, I hope that I bring the integrity to this conversation, that this is what the voters have asked for, that I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So I couch all of that because some of the questions I have are a little more on the technical side, because I want to make sure we're doing it the right way. And George, this is going to build towards, I guess, a request or a comment from the law department, so bear with me. But as I understand it, the CPC's budget can kind of be broken into two components. There is the grant-making component, which is that there's an algebraic equation of how much that shall be, 0.5% of the police budget, and then also beginning at $1 million, but it adjusts with consumer price index for more of the day-to-day management, the salaries, the benefits, buying pens, contracts, that kind of stuff. So in reading the title of the legislation and in reading the legislation, it makes it clear that this is seeking authority to enter into a contract. If we jump over to the budget, the amount that was budgeted for contracts to the Community Police Commission is something like $45,000. So the response, and Councilman Polensek led with this, was, is this coming out of contracts or is this coming out of grant making? Now, in a normal budget, and by normal I mean not one that has an algebraic equation of a portion of it, it's very common for departments and commissions within the executive branch to shift items within the budget as long as they are not exceeding the denominator of the budget, essentially. So it's possible to, say, take money from the grant-making line item and move it into contractual services. However, because the Cleveland Police Commission is set up through Section 115 as having a mandated amount for grant making, I guess my question leading up to the law department is, are we able to take money from grant making for a professional services contract? And the charter section says that grant making can be made for violence prevention, for very specific uses, but I would say even if this were coming to us as a grant and that those would then be sub-grants, I would question if we had the authority to create a grant program for grant management, or if we can only give grants for, here, let me pull it up just so that we are on the same page. This is a quote from the section, making grants to community-based violence prevention, restorative justice, and mediation programs to reduce the need for police activity. So it's very prescriptive about what sorts of grants we can give, even if we would want to give other grants that had a lot of merit. So my question to the law department is, have there been discussions? I want to make sure that we're clear that there's not an unintended violation of Section 115, even if we seek to do something that we all agree could be very beneficial for the larger spirit of this section of the charter.
Well, before you direct that to the Assistant Law Director, I'm going to direct it back to the CPC, because who would care to comment from CPC on that? And then we'll hear from the Assistant Law Director.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes. So our proposal, as we said before, is that this would come from the grant money, and I'm looking for it right now, and perhaps we should have sent that before, but we have a memo from the city law department saying that this is an appropriate use of the funds, that it meets the criteria for this program.
And that's from the Law Director?
From the law department.
Law Department. Who would?
So,
Identify yourself at the table.
I'm Jason Goodrick. I'm the interim executive director for the CPC.
Okay.
So we did have an assistant director of law who was CPC's counsel.
Okay.
So yes, this opinion was from the law department, but it was vetted by the law director as well. So the law department has already issued a memorandum on this issue, whether these funding this contract can come out of that line item specifically for the grants, and the answer was yes.
And we'll request a copy of that if you can provide that to us. Councilman Slight.
Yeah, thank you. I would, please do forward that over. I think that would be a useful thing for us to review. And I'm glad to hear that conversation's been had, but I'll reserve further comment until I've had an opportunity to read that memorandum. My final question, and again, kind of couch this with some context. A number of months ago, the consent decree, the Federal Monitor was before this body, kind of giving an update on the most recent report. And one of the areas that we got, for lack of better words, dinged, was on CPOP, which is an acronym for Community and Problem-Oriented Policing, for those that, like me, don't like having to keep up on all these acronyms. And I've been reflecting on that a lot because, you know, as it's been described to us, there's sort of two angles of community policing. If there is a block party on my street and police officers come to engage with residents, that's sort of a that's a relationship building endeavor, and that is useful and valuable. CPOP is more designed around specific needs, specific goals. So we are coming together, the police and the community, as it relates to gun violence or human trafficking or a substance abuse challenge. And we are working collaboratively to come up with goals that are going to allow us to solve this problem in a collaborative manner, instead of just expecting the police or the community to take care of it in a vacuum. And I've been reflecting on it a lot because it seems that we have a lot of the infrastructure locally to meet that endeavor. I mean, we've talked about the $10 million for violence prevention programs. We have the Community Police Commission, which has a grant-making component. So one of my questions has been, or one of my ruminations, is it that we don't have the infrastructure for this, or are we somehow not to the satisfaction of the Federal Monitor effectively documenting it, essentially? And I've been wondering about, you know, if I were to create a neighborhood watch program, you know, that, you know, got neighbors together and did good things, if we were failing on our end to communicate with Cleveland Police, and Cleveland Police is none the wiser, and we're not leveraging the existence of this to build that relationship, are we meeting the goal of the consent decree, which is to demonstrate that we are doing this and to demonstrate that we are moving toward constitutional policing? So I know that this is a long intro, but my thought has been, when we enter into violence prevention contracts, you know, grants for, you know, through the Community Police Commission, in what ways within contracts, which City Council does not write or does not negotiate, how are we sort of defining how recipients of direct or indirect tax dollars shall engage with the Division of Police, with the Community Relations Board, so that we have a kind of a quantifiable, demonstrative way to prove that we are doing CPOP? Because, as I said, I think that we have a lot of the ecosystem for this already. So the question is, to get to the question, has the Community Police Commission talked about, in their grant making, how it can contractually kind of guarantee or ensure that we are creating the requirement and opportunities for these collaborative relationships, and not unintentionally or inadvertently creating scenarios where, you know, recipients are getting tax dollars, but, you know, not engaging back in these productive relationships as is being expected by the Department of Justice. Does that make sense?
Yep. Who would care to respond, especially from the CPC? And it goes back to what Councilman is, I guess, adding on to, is what we had raised the questions initially about engagement. These groups, how they're engaged with the community, how they're engaged with the councilman, are they engaged with the police department? And so again, I think that, you know, I guess the eyes of Texas are going to be on somebody shortly from a standpoint of who's doing what, and are they doing what they're supposed to do, or is just, because I've been here a long time, is there just awarding money to somebody who has a political inside track to get funding and hasn't performed or hasn't delivered? We've seen that, unfortunately, historically with programs, especially out of community development and elsewhere, where we have funded groups and they haven't delivered. And I want to reiterate for the viewing public the challenge, and Councilman Slight touched on it briefly. Council, we cannot hire, we cannot fire, we cannot deploy, we cannot administer. We're prohibited by law. We allocate the funds. We have allocated the funds. We've given the administration what they're requested. We gave the CPC everything that was required under issue 24 under Charter Section 115. We have given you everything, because Councilman Griffin and I have had that discussion internally, making sure that that you had the funding that was required. We've done that. We're at this point now. We want to make sure that the funding that we provided is being properly spent and utilized, because that's not going to come back on us. I can assure you, it's going to come back on you folks if it's not spent properly and allocated properly, because then the red flags go up about who's doing what and who's connected to who and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'd rather not go there. I want to see some end results by seeing, you know, less violence in our neighborhoods. I want to see less juveniles winding up in DH. I want to see our police officers being engaged more in our neighborhoods with our neighbor groups and organizations, as they once were, which has seemed to have gone by the wayside, but that's tied to a number. So you heard Councilman Slive's comments. Anyone want to respond?
Okay. So I'll say we are working on that. You know, one thing I could say is, and I know for a fact some of you know some of these organizations, I know for a fact that Men and Women of Central works deeply in the community with all members of the community, including police. I was actually introduced to the Reverse Ride-Along program, where they bring cadets into the communities to meet people and learn who the community stakeholders are, who the residents are, and try to form a relationship before they hit their feet on the force. I learned about that program through the work of those men and women at Men and Women of Central. And we actually funded the Reverse Ride-Along program. So there's multiple organizations on here that I know right off the top of my head that are currently working directly with Cleveland police officers. But the fact of the matter is, only a handful of these organizations have actually been funded up until this point because of the issues we're having with contracts. We prioritize grassroots organization because in the charter it's specified community-based organizations. And a lot of those folks don't have the capacity. That is why we want to utilize the United Black Fund, so they can help us with that process so we can have more time to do the work what's required of us by the consent decree, by the city charter. Once we free up some of that headspace of answering, mundane contract questions that honestly we have to call attorneys with the city every day to talk about this, because we're not attorneys. So once we get past that and they can handle that part and they can do the administrative tasks, then we can work with those. We attempted to host meetings so we can get all those grantees together to have those conversations on, hey, how can we all come together with your expertise and what you do? So you provide resources over here with Together We Rise, and over on this side with Renounce Denounce, you're the guys that actually going on the street to help these young men while they're in the act of doing something maybe that they shouldn't be doing. How can we bring your forces together to work with the police to make positive change and some CPOP type program or activity? But until we get the support, I can't see that happening anytime soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilman Slave?
Thank you, and you know, this is again something that I've been thinking about at kind of a high level. So this isn't me casting aspersions at any one group or any one commission. You know, I guess I just moving forward, I'm hopeful that this body can be, or at least this council member can be a little vocal that like we have this expectation, we have this goal, and there are many, I suspect, organizations out there that maybe just need help building that relationship and it could flourish. And look, I'm not so naive to say that, I'm not suggesting that in every instance violence interrupter shows up, they need to have a uniformed police officer in tow. Like we all understand that the reason that violence interrupters are successful is because they have a degree of familiarity and credibility that maybe someone from elsewhere wouldn't have. But what I want to make sure is if there are those who are doing good work potentially, but are not seeking to have a strong working relationship with the City of Cleveland and its Division of Police, its Community Relations Board, I have no ill will towards them, but I wonder if they are the appropriate recipients of tax dollars. So I just want us to think about that as we're making decisions. Just since we are stewards of public funds. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate
And
you.
excuse me, through the
Yes,
chair, I just
go
want to
ahead.
say, and I'm open to reaching out to you after this so we could discuss what that looks like to each of you to see what that looks like in your respective wards.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would just add through the chair that it's good to hear this perspective so that we can take it into consideration as we move forward and understand your priority and see how best we can incorporate that into this process.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I had any other questions of my colleagues? Any other
I have a
questions?
question, Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Kelly.
Okay. Through the chair, to the team, thank you. Appreciate the commission reaching out and understanding they need some help. It's probably obvious to you that there's a comfortability here with UBF, so we thank you. I just have one question. That when you're doing these grants, it seems like now that they are going to be doing most of that. I'm just wondering, is there like a corporate scanning committee? There's still somebody from the commission going to be interviewing these things, or are you giving that all up to them?
No, we
Go ahead.
through the chair to the commissioner, to the councilman, we retain final responsibility and approval process. We'll still be voting as the commission, and we will have commissioners involved in the process, you know, with UBF on an ongoing basis, so that we know what's happening, we know who's applying, and how the process is working. So we're going to remain very involved. We just won't have to do all the. I mean, last year we arranged all the interviews and read everything. You know, just like it'll be a much easier process with their hands helping us, directing us to as to the priorities and what we should be looking at. But we will be very involved still.
I appreciate that. Looking at the glass half full. Thank you very, very much, and I wish you luck.
Thank you. Yes, Councilwoman?
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. I
Yeah.
just want to say one more thing. I want to appreciate your answer to the question that colleague Seif had asked about the partnership with United Black Fund. Because I was going to ask you that question. How did you come up? How did the CPC come up of figuring out how to unite in partnership with United Black Fund? How y'all engaged to bring them in to do this? That was one of my questions to you. But thank you for your answer. And also, I would just want to say one thing. I have Denounce. They have been to my meetings. They have engaged in Ward 4. And they are a fantastic organization. I met them just out in the community, and they approached me, didn't know anything about them. They sent me their Facebook page. Then they came to my meeting. They talked to the residents in my meeting. They've been out in the community, and they are a phenomenal violence prevention organization. So I just wanted to say that much to you when you brought that up.
Thank you,
Okay,
Councilwoman.
you're welcome.
Okay, before I ask for a vote on this, we have one resident who wished to speak, Ms. Bickerstaff. Will be given. No, you come to the table if you're going to address the council. Someone would just, right here. You have 3 minutes.
You said 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm Brenda Bickerstaff. I am the founder of Citizens for Safer Cleveland, who created the issue 24. I just want to let you know, Mr. Slife and Mr. Kelly, we watch the commission all the time. Joe Jones knows this. Councilwoman Gray knows it. Richard Starr knows it. I critique them, good, bad, or indifferent. I check them when they're wrong. Not you. I said the commission. The commission, I check them if they're wrong, and they know this. When they brought in the United Black Fund, I'm very familiar with Celeste. I was a board president of a nonprofit called Informing Our Children Incorporated for 12 years. At the time, it was Bill Patman. It was Bill Patman, Mr. Roosevelt Coates, and Willis. What they used to do, this is what our organization used to do. They used to do a census track. Because then Mr. Patman said, well, you're doing money. Yeah, right. If you're doing census in neighborhood, they need to give you some money too. So they would do a census track. I would drop it off, the names and the address of the people that serve, what the activity is, turn it in, and then they would give us the check. Now, that's the way the city corresponded with us, with a nonprofit, okay? Now, of course, the CBC, as you know, they're new, they're young, and we took the suggestion that they should have somebody, because we were watching them, and they were like drowning in these grants. And I said, you guys do need someone to oversee these grants. Now, to Celeste, to her integrity, Celeste is a watchdog. And I know that because Celeste came out and watched us, okay? And she takes notes and she don't play. And she would not let your money be misused. And if she feels that an organization is not doing their job, she would nicely cut them off with a smile and a letter. I'm just telling you. I know this because I've worked with this woman for a long time. And I'm very familiar, and I gave her a hug when I saw her at the meeting. So just to let you know, Mr. Slife and Mr. Kelly, Councilman Kelly and Councilman Slife, we're watchdogs of this. And we're going to continue to watch because we're not politicians, but we sold this to the communities. Some people voted for it, some people didn't, but they still have to serve everybody. And we want to ensure that those dollars are going where they need to go. We asked a lot of questions as well. And a lot of these organizations are new and they're young and they have to learn. Hey, you got to get an attorney. Perhaps some of them probably can't afford an attorney. There's a nonprofit that knows about this type of stuff. So you just, bear with them and stay on top, and they will, and I back them up. And Mr. Slife, I want to say this. The consent decree is one entity. Charter 115 is another. They did incorporate it, but just to let you know, when the consent decree leaves, the commissioners still be here. We want to make them strong so they can handle what needs to be handled.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other testimony from the community at all? Thank you very much for everyone's comments at the table, everyone's attendance, the requests that we have made, again, for contact information, phone numbers, emails, United Black Fund, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any indication, finally, before we call the roll, do you have any indication as to when you'll be submitting the groups to the United Black Fund for review?
We are basically waiting for this approval so that we can start the process as soon as possible.
Okay. Just a point of clarification. Well, let me do this, and I just have one question for the CPC. Without objection, ordinance number 835-2024 is approved as read. Please sign it up. Now for the CPC. There are 13 members, 3 appointed by council, 9 appointed by the mayor, and then ratified by council. Are all 9 up at the end of the year?
So, to the chair, there's a staggered, right? So 6 people had 2-year terms, and
Yes.
those terms are all up, including co-chairs I had.
Yes.
7 of us have 4-year terms.
As of December 31st, 6 are up.
Right.
Okay.
And then 3 additional people who had 4-year terms have announced their resignation at the end of the year. So there are 9 open spots, but I know that at least a few of the people who had 2-year terms are reapplying.
Okay. What is the deadline on that?
Is it this Friday?
Yeah, it was September the 6th, but they extended that, so now it's Friday.
Okay. This coming Friday?
Yes.
Okay. And then at some point, obviously, the mayor will be reviewing those folks and then shipping the names over to us. Okay, that's what I want to get clarified. Okay, thank you. I want to thank again everyone who came today. I want to thank my colleagues. I know there's a lot going on. And again, without any further ado, without any further questions, the Safety Committee stands adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.